Hello and welcome aboard the Talkin Texans podcast, episode 9. I am Paul Gallant, host of the Paul Gallant Show, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, 10 to noon every single weekday. And he is DJ Bien-Aimé, Houston Texans beat writer for ESPN. That hasn't gotten old yet. We're going to keep on doing it until DJ hates it. ESPN.
I don't really mind it because your voice makes it kind of funny. So,
good.
You know,
that's where we're going.
ESPN. Like, it's not like we're on a commercial or something like that. You know what I mean? We're getting ready to cut into Sports Center.
Hello, I'm standing here inside my house with some hot takes from the Houston Texans with nothing going on, because that's where we're at. That's where we're at right now. Rather slow week.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where we're at. It's the summer. I mean, some of the topics that we have for today kind of speaks to that, you know. So
because we are literally scraping the bottom of the barrel. And you know what, DJ Bien-Aimé, sometimes we sit and we hope there's going to be some sort of story to talk about on a daily basis. If you're hosting a daily radio show, 10 to noon, holy crap. I'm lucky I only have to go for 2 hours because you got to find things to talk about. And there's not that much, especially if the Astros maybe are playing so hot of late. So I'm low-key thankful for something that we were made aware of by John Crumpler, who is somebody who covers the Houston Texans. He aggregated a video from the Colin Cowherd show, The Herd, which is on Fox Sports 1. With this caption, Colin Cowherd says that Houston quarterback CJ Stroud is unlikely to reach Dak Prescott's level because he didn't face the same adversity in college. The two things that matter in this sport at quarterback are where do you land and what was the route to get you there. So before I blow a gasket on this, DJ, I did find this tweet interesting and that caption interesting as well, given if we're talking about quarterbacks in this past year's draft class who went through adversity, yeah, Bryce Young's the short king. Yeah, Will Levis had to deal with the adversity of going to a New England prep school and then transferring colleges from Penn State to Kentucky. And yeah, Anthony Richardson had to deal with all the other things that people who follow the Florida Gators of late deal with, which is just never living up to expectations. But when I think of CJ Stroud, DJ, I think of a man who went through adversity, and I know that he's got a fascinating backstory, but let's just start with the fact that Stat's been in jail multiple times and has been in jail since he was 13 years old. Imagine going through high school without a dad. Imagine becoming the football player that he did just in high school without that kind of support and with your family really like struggling to make ends meet. And then on top of that, you get to Ohio State and you're feeling with a ton of competition on a regular basis. So I saw that, DJ. I got rather annoyed.
Yeah, I know. We texted about it. You were super annoyed. I find the whole discussion of you got to go through adversity to be an NFL player, or pro player, or quarterback, kind of find it lazy. Because, like, in reality, like, everybody, 99% of people in life go through adversity. 99, my bad. 100. Everybody, you know, goes through some level of adversity. So, and especially at the quarterback position, what do we mean by adversity? With, like, you mentioned Dak, like, what type of adversity that he had played at Mississippi State? It's still an SEC school. He had to carry the team, and you know he had to be the focal point of the offense. If that's your point, cool. But the whole concept of adversity and being able to overcome that, everybody overcomes adversity to get to the NFL. You don't get to the NFL without having some type of adversity. I think for me, it's more about, do you have mental toughness? Because the majority of, again, everybody that goes to the NFL went through some type of adversity. Do you have the mental toughness to survive? Because you can go through adversity and still not be mentally strong. There's a plethora of people that's happened to them. You just were able to find a way to get through whatever you were going through. I mean, I'm a perfect example. Like, I went through plenty of adversity to get to the University of Louisville, going through 3 different JUCOs, one in Arkansas, one in North Dakota, one in California, having to sleep on a couch for the entire year, We had a 2-bedroom and we had like it was 6. I had 5 other roommates, 1 bathroom.
Holy crap.
That's adversity. That's adversity. And I overcame that. But in Louisville, I was not mentally strong because every time there was legitimate pressured meet like the ACCs in 2017, I peed down my pants. You know what I'm saying? Outdoor. Indoor, I did better. But outdoor, I peed down my pants and I folded under pressure. Simple as that. So the concept of, if you have the ability to overcome adversity, that gives you a better chance at being a good quarterback. Nah, not necessarily. And what do we like really describe as adversity? You just had to like carry a team. Yeah, I mean that's most quarterbacks in the NFL. You got to still, if you're good, you're gonna have to carry your team. So I guess if you don't carry a team, that could be a quote unquote red flag. But the majority of the quarterbacks now, I have a list up that have been drafted since 2017 came from powerhouses. Deshaun Watson, Clemson. Trevor Lawrence, Clemson. Joe Burrow, LSU. Because again, Joe Burrow, yes, he transferred from Ohio State. That's quote unquote adversity. But he went from Ohio State to LSU and played with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, who are 2 top 10 receivers.
Are they good?
Yeah, they seem good to me. Maybe Alabama 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Crimson Tide fan on Twitter might think Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase overrated, but those 2 guys are pretty good. Again, I said Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts went to Oklahoma, Kyler Murray went to Oklahoma. Like there's a bunch of like the young quarterbacks that are really, really good now. They all went to predominant. I mean, who's gonna be the number 1 pick in the draft next year? Who's everybody saying the number 1 pick? I forgot his name. It's
Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams. What school does he go to again, Paul?
USC.
Is USC not a powerhouse?
They are very powerful.
Come on, you know what I'm saying? Like in today's NFL, in today's college football, you're gonna go to, if you're gonna get drafted high, most likely you're gonna go to a powerhouse type of school. You know what I'm saying? Or a team that is expected to be good. Now, back in the day, cool, I understand that. Different game, different dynamic. That was back when you could run the ball a lot and get you to 11, 12 wins and play good defense. Now you got to have good quarterback play in college football. So the notion that, because again, this stems from he went to Ohio State, the Ohio State narrative. And we got to also be honest, like how many of those Ohio State guys were legitimate like NFL quarterbacks? You know what I'm saying? Again, back in the day, like you can get away with just having like really, really good athletes that were okay throwers and you can win a lot of games. Now you got to, for the most part, be dynamic at quarterback too when in college and get to the NFL.
And we're still learning. We're still learning if Justin Fields is going to be able to do that as a passer. We know, though, like, the things you mentioned as an athlete, like that's why he's in the league. And that's why I think a lot of people think he has the ability to maybe get a little bit better. But to go back to your adversity comments, specifically Dak Prescott, that is the comparison that Colin Cowherd decided to use in that spot. And he brought up, well, he got sacked 55 times. He was playing on the 9th best school in the SEC. And he was also a 4th-round pick. But a 4th-round pick that found himself in a very advantageous situation. If you watch this whole video, I feel like Howard kind of submarined his own point, bringing up the fact that Prescott joined a team that had a great offensive line, came into the same draft class as Ezekiel Elliott, and had a lot of support around him when he eventually overtook Tony Romo, which I think was aided in part by injury too, with the Cowboys. So, look, I think we always want to make comparisons between quarterbacks in the past and quarterbacks in the present. And obviously, we're looking for things to talk about in June. But as you said perfectly, we all go through a little bit of adversity. I just think it's crazy, DJ, that Colin Cowherd or the people that do research for a show didn't use, I don't know, Google to look up the fact that, like, his dad was in jail. God, that's such a burden for any young man to go through, where he's not going to be out of jail from 13 on for 38 years unless parole gets him out a little bit more quickly. So, a strange comparison. I'm glad Colin made it because we have something to talk about today. He was making the comparison to, like, well, I like CJ Stroud, kind of. He could be Jared Goff someday. And again, the comparisons just keep on coming. I don't know what to expect out of CJ Stroud, DJ Bename. Maybe this is a lazy on my part. We know he has accuracy. We know he has more mobility than he has shown off in college. And he's coming into a situation that doesn't have a lot of great wide receivers, at least for his first season in the NFL. But I feel like making the comparisons to Dak or to Goff and then talking about adversity, that's what you do if you're me goofing off on a radio show 10 to noon, comparing short king adversity versus my dad's in jail adversity.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. And you're right. Like, to completely miss that is, a mistake. Probably maybe he was talking about just on the field adversity,
Maybe.
But like even then, like, yes, that for sure carried in college, but the majority of quarterbacks coming out now aren't carrying. Like, they're also surrounded by a plethora of talent, just by the advancement of the sport with 7-on-7s, things of that nature. Like, again, Deshaun Watson played with a bunch of, like, he played with a few NFL receivers. So did Tua Tagovailoa, so did Joe Burrow, so did Kyler Murray, so did like Kyler Murray's two receivers were first-round picks, CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown. Both of them were 1,000-yard receivers. CeeDee Lamb was all-pro this past season. Like, that's just how it is now. You're going to play with a lot of talent. Like, you're not going to have to carry. And on top of that, you don't want your quarterback to always have to carry everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's kind of good if you have a lot of talent around you and they also prop you up while you're propping them up. It's called a team. Team sport, you feel me? So
we've gotten away from that, though, I think, Jay, where it's not looked at as much of a team sport as maybe it was in years past. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that we have started treating quarterbacks, the rules that are more advantageous for them. But it is now all about the quarterback. If you don't have one, you're screwed. That's the mentality that most people have looking at teams. And I guess evidence would show that that's generally right. But you're right in what you said. Like, you are supposed to be helped by people around you, and whether or not you went through adversity at previous levels shouldn't have an impact on that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, there's plenty of quarterbacks Baker went through plenty of adversity at in his college career, and he can't play.
Yeah,
he can't
trying
play.
to run away from the cops.
Yeah, like he had a bunch, and it just he just had a mediocre quarterback.
Right, failed at that adversity attempt because the cops tackled him.
Exactly. So it's what I mean, like the
whole pick. Come on, you gotta escape the cops. Where's the honesty?
For me, what makes a good quarterback just really comes down to how do you handle, how mentally tough are you? Because, for example, perfect example. I know I always do this. I always bring it back to my years covering the Jets, but this is gonna be a good example. Zach Wilson had a lot of adversity in college. He had an injury after his first year. He hurt his shoulder. And that made him have a bad sophomore year. And he had to get surgery, and he had to go through quarterback competition. And throughout the whole summer, he used to drive down to Southern California to train with John Beck, former BYU quarterback, former NFL quarterback. So he used to do that a lot. And then his last year, blossom, boom, ended up being number 2 overall pick. So that's legitimate adversity. And again, like, for the most part, like, he was the best player on that team. Granted, they did play a lot of, like, mediocre opponents, like a lot of, Southwest Baptist Christian Tech type schools, whatever, directional schools, but he did his thing. And he crumbled by the midway through his second year, mainly because he just wasn't mentally tough. And I think that's what it comes down to. Are you mentally tough? Right? Can you handle legit trials and tribulation and keep pushing forward? That's the difference. If you can do that. Everybody go through adversity. Are you able to withstand the adversity and not only overcome it, like survive it, but overcome it and become better within that? And, so from a mental and tangible spot, that's what matters to me. Are you a good leader, and can you process? If you're a first-round pick, you can make the majority of the throws. Now, okay, the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, whatever. Like, that's one of one. But for the most part, if you want to be a good to great quarterback, you got to be able to process, be mentally tough. And that's what I really determine whether you could be a great quarterback or not. You
said mentally tough a couple of times. Mm-hmm. It's a subjective word. I guess for you, what defines it for you in a quarterback?
For me, it's when things aren't all going well, can you still find a way to put your offense in positions to make plays and keep the offense on track? That's what I would consider, like, are you mentally tough? Or you have a bad game. What are you going to do or a bad couple games? What are you going to do to figure out whatever the defense is throwing at you? You know what I'm saying? Whether it's in game a few weeks later, whether it's in the games, what are you doing to try to figure out why am I struggling? How do you get yourself out of those situations? Because some people, it can torpedo, it can spiral. You know what I'm saying? Like I was kind of one of those guys where if things weren't going well, I struggled to finally get the train back on track. And that's what I would describe as some, what I want in my quarterbacks. Can you figure when things aren't going well? Can you figure it out? Whether it's on the fly, whether it's from series to series, whether it's you're bad the first 3 quarters and then the 4th quarter you turn it on. Like for example, like that was the narrative with Lamar Jackson. That sometimes when he was trailing, he couldn't get it done. Where that was kind of baloney, but he proved it a lot, especially in 2021. Especially that Monday night game against the Colts where he had like 500 yards of total offense or whatever. But like, that's what matters to me, like not, did you overcome adversity? Everybody overcomes adversity day in and day out. That's life. So I think that's what I would describe as mental toughness. Can you overcome trials and tribulations in the moment or weeks after when you're getting your tail whooped, beat up? Can you figure out how to discover what the antidote is to your struggles?
And that's the macro version. And I'm with you there. It's the big picture. For me, the micro is short memory. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm the biggest fan of Trevor Lawrence. I think we're crowning him very quickly. However, the guy threw 4 interceptions early on in the playoffs against the Chargers, and he shook it off. They played well the rest of the game. Next week, he was more careful with the football against City. Obviously, they didn't win that game, but that's what I'm looking at as far as mental toughness. It's can you shake off mistakes, and can you shake off getting absolutely smashed around? Excuse me. Why do I keep on saying Kaepernick? It's Colin Cowherd. Cowherd, when he brings up Dak Prescott getting sacked 55 times. Well, there's some quarterbacks who get sacked a ton who become worse. I would say David Carr with the Houston Texans, first overall pick. He got worse and worse. I think he got more and more nervous about what was going to happen every time he took a snap. Did you blame him? I mean, good God. He's getting sacked like 70 times a year. So I think it's a very subjective word. I think we're going to learn about the short-term and long-term memory with Stroud at this level, the NFL level. But to go back to what Howard originally said, which is there's the old belief, tougher the childhood, tougher the route, eventually tougher the kid before one of his vintage analogies about crown molding, granite countertops, and if you have a BMW, you might be a little softer. Stroud's been through a lot as a man, and I know that you've been around him a lot more than I have to this point because the way that the Texans camp schedule is set up. But the guy seems to have a very strong faith. And while I don't want to turn this into like a theology podcast, I think it takes him a long way. Like I think it's great that he has that given what he's been through. I think for me, as somebody who came from a broken home, I know that changed a lot of my beliefs about what is, what isn't, and faith especially. For Stroud, it's been the opposite, and that pillar in his life, for better or for worse, in the eyes of many, I mean, it's clearly helped him out. And I think going through what he went through as a teenager, crap, man. That is a lot. He seems to come out on the other side. So I think this is one of the situations where you have a radio host, probably didn't do as much as he should have. Bad sign that show that's nationally televised with a person that actually has a massive budget and probably underlings beneath him that can help him do research for the show. But we'll see what Stroud does. But I'm pretty optimistic about his ability to overcome it because I think that he's actually overcome more than the other quarterbacks that were in his draft class, at least at the top of the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you talk about the whole, adversity or spoon-fed or whatever, arguably the best quarterback ever right now. Because, in my opinion, Patrick Mahomes is he's on that track. His dad played professional baseball.
There you go. Peyton Manning,
Come
of an NFL quarterback.
Come on. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole idea that like I do think like, if you come from a lot of money as a child, it can have an impact in terms of just how in terms of your people skills. But um I don't you have to do very deep research into that and see how that influenced their personality. Like if that is who they are, that's what made them like, being spoon fed and they know that and they try to take advantage of that. Okay, red flag. But you know, I mean, obviously CJ wasn't spoon fed,
Right.
so
I enjoyed this conversation. DJ, you told me you should take a look ahead at the Texans schedule. Again, we're digging at the bottom of the barrel. So obviously right now, we have a pretty good idea what the Texans roster is going to be going into the year. There will be cuts made over the coming months as we get through training camp and the preseason, but we do know who they're playing this coming year. We also do have very early gambling lines for other degenerates out there as
right,
far as the way things go. I
right,
figured we could talk about these games and just say what pundits / Vegas is saying about the game. We don't need to pick with or against the spread or anything like that. But it's a good idea of where people are doing it. So starting off with week one, DJ, road game the Texans have against the Baltimore Ravens. Odell Beckham Jr. aboard. Lamar Jackson still there. Baltimore's a 10-point week one favorite against the Houston Texans. When you look at that game really quickly, let's try to get through all of them, like 3 minutes or less if we can. I don't know. I'm rambling right now. How do you think this one's going to go?
that week one. Well,
Yeah.
I have a stat about Lamar Jackson in week ones.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
is
like
he good?
we're talking about like one of the best to ever do it. Like
Whoa. In week one?
yeah, yeah, like
Good to
in
know.
week one. Let me see if I can pull it up. Can't find it right now, but Lamar Jackson usually averages like 300 yards, and like his team usually scores over 30 points in those week one games. I remember in 2019, Lamar Jackson, yeah, like 5 touchdown passes and like 317 yards passing. He even run the ball. Then I remember against the Raiders, he threw for like over 300, and he ran pretty well that game. I remember last year against the Jets defense that we came to find out was really, really good. He threw for like 303 touchdowns. So like Lamar week one is a headache because like there's just so much that he can do that you can't necessarily prepare for week one. You know what I mean? Like week one, um, with the running, the throwing, you need some tape on that to be able to put it all together. If you don't have that tape, you're kind of going out there blindfolded. And I think that's a really good challenge for the Texans week one. Because I think the defense could be a top, 18, 17 unit in the entire NFL. So I think it's going to be a really good test for them just to see how much has D'Amico Ryan's coaching how much has he been able to instill into his unit and see if they're really ready for that type of battle. Because again, you're going to have Lamar, left tackle Staley. You're going to have Mark Andrews at tight end, Odell at receiver, Zay Flowers at receiver, Rashad Bateman, if he's healthy, at receiver, Duvernay at receiver, Dobbins in the backfield. Like their offense is pretty loaded. That's why a lot of people are really high on them that they got a new offensive coordinator that's going to utilize more of Lamar Jackson's passing on a perimeter versus being so focused and centric on getting tight ends and fullbacks the ball. And I forgot on defense, they probably have like one of the best secondaries in the league. And once they got Rickon Smith, they were a top 5 or top 3 unit in terms of yards per game, DVOA, points per game, all that. They were top 3 in the entire NFL once they got Raekwon Smith. So
Right.
CJ Stroud's gonna have a lot to deal with, and D'Amico's gonna have a lot to deal with on his end. So it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great test, that's for sure.
I think it's going to be rather unfortunate for the Texans in week one because it's Bobby Slowik's first week as an offensive coordinator. It's D'Amico Ryan's first week as a head coach. And what do we think the Texans do well? We think they run the football well. To your point, what you were saying about the defense just a moment ago, DJ, the Ravens allowed third best in the league, 3.9 yards to carry last year. They're going to be running the football a lot. And look, things can change from year to year, especially with defense in the NFL. But That's not a good combination when we're talking about rookie quarterbacks. Obviously, some rookie quarterbacks have had amazing debuts, so he could prove all of us wrong, but I don't think that's the best matchup for CJ Stroud and the Texans in week 1.
Yeah, I agree.
Week 2, the Texans, they're favored at home against the Indianapolis Colts. They're a 1-point favorite. It's going to be CJ Stroud, and I would imagine Anthony Richardson on the other sideline for Indianapolis. I look at this game. I look at what happened last year in the last game of the season between these two teams, and I am factoring that in a little bit. I feel like the Texans are a better football team than the Colts are right now. Again, we'll see because the Colts were dealing with a lot of injuries last season, specifically in the offensive line, and you hope Jonathan Taylor for Indianapolis is going to be back to 100%. I would imagine that if the Texans defense is largely the same as it was last year, Taylor's going to run all over them, sort of the same way Derrick Henry does. But I think other than that, I do think the Texans are a better team than Indianapolis at this point in time. If the game's at home, I'm going to take the Texans.
I mean, we should go based off of last year. I mean, they tied and they beat them. Both games came down to the wire. I mean, they should have won the first game without question. They should have. I mean, the offense just completely dried up in the fourth. Like, that game they should have started 1-0. Like, they could have been 2-3 out of the first 5 games, and we might be looking at it. Right. Yeah, I mean, they could have been 3-2 after the first 5 games, and we might be talking about completely. Lovie Smith might still be head coach.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, there could have been a lot. Like, but I do think they're a better overall team. I think the Colts have more top end talent. Like, they have DeForest Buckner, they have Leonard, they have Nelson, and they have Jonathan Taylor. Like, those 4 players are, they're all like top 5 at their own positions. It's just that the pieces around them aren't nearly as good. Where the Texans have a better cohesive unit, and those players that I mentioned, they all play outside of Buckner. They all play non-premium positions. So like they can go off, but like it might not necessarily impact the scoreboard. Overly impact the scoreboard. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor goes for like 3 touchdowns. That's 21 points. But they can corral Jonathan Taylor, even though last year they allowed the 6th most rushing yards ever in NFL history.
Oh my God.
But I think that they can contain him well enough to where they have a shot at winning that game. They're favored for a reason. Again, like, the Texans aren't as bad as national pundits believe. But that they won't have any gimmies. I'll say that much. That's going to be a game where they're going to fight tooth and nail because they're just not at the point yet where they can, show up and they're going to be able to. Talent's going to overpower and they're going to be able to get a dub. But I do expect the defense to play extremely well in that game. I'm really interested to see what the game plan is for Anthony Richardson. I would really be interested to see what if the game plan is kind of similar to what the 49ers did against Lamar Jackson in 2019 when Lamar Jackson won MVP. Because, just for the first few years, the first few starts for Anthony Richardson, it's going to be a lot similar where like you're going to use a lot of zone read stuff, try to get him on the perimeter, help him use his legs, create easy throws for him, off play action, off RPOs, things of that nature for Anthony Richardson. That's the only way he's going to be able to have success early, that is. But I really want to see what the game plan is going to be for that and how they go about executing that. Are they going to leave a spy in the box? Or are they going to play a lot more man coverage? Are they going to run more single high just to have more people in the box? Like, I'm really interested to see how that's going to come together. Are they going to watch tape from the Eagles game last year where they played Jalen Hurts and
they
Shane?
Should.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because Shane was the offensive coordinator to fit out the tendencies. Because right. Because the first few weeks you're kind of more going off of like the tendencies aren't clear yet. After week 4, you start to pick up on the tendencies because the tendency of week 1 could be completely different in week 2. You know what I'm saying? And completely different in week 3 because it's early, everything is fluid. So I'm really interested to see what the game plan is in week 2.
We're going to split this schedule into 3 segments over the next couple of shows. I figure we're going to talk in detail about all these games the way that we're going on both of them. So week 3, September 24th, the Texans go on the road to take on the defending AFC South champion Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are favored by 7. The big change for Jacksonville from last year going into this year is that Calvin Ridley, who of course missed a lot of the 2021 season when he took an absence away from the team, and then on top of that, missing all of last year for gambling on the NFL. He's with this Jaguars offense, and a lot of people are thinking it's going to help them make a big jump. To their credit, I mean, they looked pretty damn good last year. I think a lot of people mocked the signing of dang, I'm forgetting his name, the wide receiver, but they did bring in Evan Ingram, and on top of that, last year, Christian Kirk they brought in. Kirk produced. So you've got in Jacksonville the makings of a potentially very explosive offense. The defensive side of things, they kind of kept things the same. I think Jacksonville will win in week 3, but with the line at Jaguars by 7, DJ, I have a hard time buying into Jacksonville as being 7 points better than the Texans, especially when you take a look at the head-to-head history between these two teams, because the last time the Texans played in Jacksonville, they won.
Yeah, no, I think against Jacksonville, we saw both. We saw the game in Jacksonville, how competitive it was, and how it came down to the wire. And the second game was obviously a landslide. Like it was, they got crushed. But at that point, Jacksonville was kind of rolling. But I do think that the Texans overall, they do match up, and they've always matched up pretty well against the Jaguars historically. Again, they had like a pretty long win streak against them. I forgot the exact number, but I think it might have been like 6, where they won like 6 in a row. But I do think that the Jags will probably win that game, but in reality, it's not going to be a blowout. Like 7, you're basically predicting a blowout, right? In most games, especially early in the year, it's very, very close. It's very close. And I expect the Texans to match up, especially on the perimeter, right? Because we talk about Calvin Ridley coming into the fold, and he's obviously dynamic, but he hasn't played in over a year. I think that the Texans secondary versus the Jags secondary, the Jags receiving core will be able to match up extremely well. It's really come down to, can the Texans establish the run and be able to play off of that? Because I think the Jags defense could be pretty good. And if you actually see it throw it 30, 35, 40 times, good luck.
The number that you were looking up, 9 wins in a row. The Houston
It was
Texans
9 in a row
over the Jaguars. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so that's my point. Like, you can't. That's not a gimme. Now, if it was like the Jags weren't in the division, cool. But a divisional opponent and you've been dominating them, like it's kind of like when the Colts go to Jacksonville. Like they haven't won there since I think the Obama administration. Like they haven't won there in forever.
Crazy.
So and the Jags have been an abomination. Until recent, they were an abomination for a while.
Yeah.
And the Colts were pretty well run. They had Andrew Luck, you know what I'm saying? Like they were pretty good. And even when Andrew Luck retired, they were still able to be competent, have a well-functioning offense, things of that nature, with Jacoby, with what's his face? Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, even though they had to move off all those guys, but they were still winning either 9, 11, or they won 7 games with Jacoby, but he got hurt, and they still couldn't win in Jacksonville. And they had way more talent in Jacksonville. They could not win in Jacksonville. So
sometimes these weird things just happen, and that has been something that's been fortunate for the Texans of late.
For example, like to follow up on the divisional part, not to cut you off, I think the Jets have not beat the Patriots since 2015.
Oh yeah,
and
I love that.
they've had teams that have been good enough to win those games, and they have not beaten them since 2015. So again, back to your point.
Jets.
I can't tell you the last time the Dolphins have beat the Bills in Buffalo. Like the Dolphins been able to do been better at home.
Hey,
but I can't tell you. I think the last time. I know the last time. The last time was 2016. The last time they beat in Buffalo.
It was close to the snow in the holidays last year, but
yeah,
you're right. It's been a while.
So
sorry to rub it in.
Just be nice.
Listen, we could both make fun of the Buffalo Bills for their dynasty and how great it was until Stephon Diggs got mad at them and said that he needs to be involved in play calling. Good God. Diva wide receivers. They're my favorite. Steelers, Texans, October 1st. J.J. Watt Ring of Honor Day. Pittsburgh is a 3.5-point favorite. I think this one really depends on how you feel about Kenny Pickett. I know a lot of people liked what they saw out of him last year. He came on strong for Pittsburgh in the second half of the year. I'll admit that I wasn't watching him a lot because the Steelers were one of those teams at the bottom of the AFC playoff race, along with the New England Patriots. Like, you didn't want to watch them play. I look at Pittsburgh with a healthy TJ Watt as being pretty imposing against a Texans offense that's likely still going to be figuring itself out. Mike Tomlin's a really good coach. If I got to pick between Tomlin and D'Amico Ryan, I'm picking Tomlin. So I think that Pittsburgh would end up winning this one. Spread is respecting the Texans at least in this one, or perhaps just disrespecting Pittsburgh because they're maybe not that sold on Kenny Pickett.
So we're early in the year, and both of them are still gonna be trying to figure out what ways, like what's gonna be their identity. And obviously, both of them are both led by defensive-minded head coaches. So while the offense is still trying to figure it out, they're gonna both be relying on defenses. And both of them are gonna have impact players on both sides of the ball, right? You got Minka Fitzpatrick for the Steelers, you got TJ Watt, as you mentioned, Cameron Hayward, and then on the opposite side, Will Anderson should be making waves by that point. Same with Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie. So it's gonna be a defensive battle. It's really gonna come down to like who makes plays in the fourth between both quarterbacks, whether Kenny or CJ. So I think that's gonna be a game where you learn a lot about CJ, right? Where because it's gonna be a battle. There's gonna be some trials and tribulations, some bumps and bruises. He's gonna have to overcome adversity, and then try to get the dub. So I think that's what that game really gonna come down to. It's really gonna come down to who makes plays in the fourth. And kind of who has the ball last. I don't really envision that being a Steelers blowout or a Texans blowout where, you're up by a 21 in the fourth. No, I think it's going to be like a 21-17 game or a 17-14 game, and who's going to either get the stop to secure the win or who's going to make the play on offense to get the W.
We'll see on that one. It's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does this year in a really tough AFC North, too, because you expect Cleveland to be better. You expect the Cincinnati Bengals to be there. You expect the Baltimore Ravens to probably be a little bit better, too. I mean, that might be the worst team in the division. Iron sharpens iron.
Well, for Texans fans, they hope the Browns are the worst team in the division. So.
That's true. We are hoping
which
might not happen, though.
Isn't out of the realm of possibility. The division is pretty good. The division is very good. So, I mean, you can kind of pencil in Cincinnati and the Ravens, and then you just kind of got to figure out who's going to be that third team, and then, so.
That's true. I'm hopeful, but they do have talent, and I feel like we've also been sort of in a similar state with the Browns over the last couple of years that we've been with the Chargers. We're like, well, at some point it's going to happen, right?
Right.
Maybe it doesn't.
Right.
Some organizations just have like that loser DNA oozing through them.
It's a real thing. Like that's a real thing. Like you hear the cliche, but that's a legitimately real thing. Like if you're around the organization that always loses, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You're gonna just accept that the fact that you guys are losers, or not losers, but you guys just lose a lot, and it is what it is.
You can flush it, but it takes a while. I mean, you've seen it with the Bengals, but like that's almost a miracle at this point in time. Week 5, Houston Texans, in our way too early season prediction. They take on the Atlanta Falcons on the road. Atlanta's a 3-point favorite. DJ, I don't know how much attention you've been paying to NFL podcasts. I have been listening to a bunch. The Falcons are a really popular hipster band where there's a lot of people that are like, ooh, I really like what they could possibly be. They drafted Bijan Robinson. That's exciting. They have Kyle Pitts as well. And you take a look at some of the other weapons that they have. You're really looking at the Falcons and you're wondering, okay, what the hell is Desmond Ridder going to be able to do with all of this? I think the Texans are better than Atlanta, but I do understand how conceptually maybe week 5 we're looking at the Falcons in a really bad NFC South and we're saying to ourselves, oh, they're fun, and maybe we're thinking totally differently. If I got to pick right now, though, if they were hesitant to pull the plug on Marcus Mariota, who bleeping quit the team last year, went AWOL. I really want to check that out on the Netflix documentary about the quarterbacks as to why that was. He just left. Now he goes to Philadelphia, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm here to be a mentor." I think Jalen Hurts is gonna be okay, dude. I think he's gonna be fine. What do we make of the Falcons? I think the Texans will beat the Falcons in Week 5. What say you, TJ?
If they can't stop the run, they don't have a shot.
That is true.
Because Bijan is going to be a problem. And they had the other guy for the 5th round that went for 1,000 yards last year. Like, they have a lot of skill players.
Tyler Algier,
Yeah,
Terrell Patterson.
They have an excellent 7-on-7 team. Excellent 7-on-7 team. It just comes down to, like, can Desmond Ridder make plays? But I think with their running scheme under Arthur Smith, that if the Texans aren't on their P's and Q's, Bijan, Patterson, the 5th round pick from last year,
Algier,
all over them. Algier, they're running all over them, and I'm more afraid of that game than I am the Colts game. Yeah, like because
I don't think they're gonna have to pass.
Yeah, they're gonna be, you know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna be able to tote the rock and do their thing. You know, like if they can't stop the run, they have no shot in that game. Like that's not a game where they can win if they're not able to. Because again, like we have to also understand that CJ Stroud. Like I remember I was debating with one of my good friends from junior college. He was talking. He's a Panthers fan, so obviously like Bryce, and he was saying like, we're gonna win the division. We'll win 10 games. I'm like, bro, you haven't had because again he's a Panthers fan. You haven't had a rookie quarterback in a while, man. Like they have stinkers out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like it's only a matter of time. It's when, but they have games where it smells real bad. You know what I'm saying? Where you're like, what was going on there? So like, and a lot of times it happen on the road. Sometimes it happen at home, but more times it happen on the road. And you know that's when you really need your defense to come through, and they can't stop the run. Like that could be one of those stinkers where it's just like it could, again they're random. Like I remember I remember when during Justin Herbert's rookie year, like he was tearing everybody up, and then against the Dolphins he looked like poop. You know, he threw like 2 interceptions. You know what I'm saying? Like barely threw for over 200 yards. I think to this day, it's probably still his worst game of his career. And then same with like Tua Tagovailoa, that same year where the Raiders had a terrible defense, terrible. And just Herbert the week before on Thursday Night Football threw for like 300, had the game-winning touchdown overtime. You thinking Tua's gonna come in there and put up some numbers? The man threw for under 100 yards and got benched, and threw 1 touchdown. I think he threw for 94 yards total, and the touchdown he threw was a screen pass to Myles Gaskin that he was able to run up into the touchdown after halftime. So, like, it's random. You know what I'm saying? And if the run game, if the run defense does not show up, that could be one of those games where it's a stinker.
Yeah.
Straight up. You know? Because when you can't stop the run, it shortens the game also. So, like, your possessions are instead of you getting, like, 10, 11, maybe 12 possessions, you might get 8. You might get 7. And if you don't score 3 touchdowns in those 7 possessions, and we all know how hard it is to score touchdowns, good luck. You know what I'm saying?
The more you talk about this game, the more I think the Falcons are going to run for 300 yards.
Nah, I don't think they're going to run for 300 yards, though. I think a lot better. But I'm just saying they better show up. Like, that's a game they better show up run defense-wise.
The Falcons, it's interesting that they're in Atlanta because that's where Georgia Tech is. Remember how Georgia Tech was the one Power 5 team that ran the triple option? I don't know if they still do it. I haven't watched it.
They don't do it anymore. But
okay.
Yes.
But I remember they did that. And that could be what the Falcons are to the rest of the teams in the NFL. They're zagging.
Right. Yeah, no, great point. I mean, shoot, that's basically, I remember that's kind of what like the Niners and to an extent like the Patriots were doing like recently, like, after the Brady left, Patriots wise, was like, well, everybody was trying to spread it all out. They were like, all right, let's go get a fullback. Let's run some 21 personnel, 22 personnel. Yeah. Let's play smash football where everybody's getting light in the box, getting lighter linebackers, bringing safeties into the box, putting safeties at linebacker. Let's just beef up and let's just run the rock. And I could see it being a little similar in that aspect where, but then again, the Texans, they're going to be a base 4-3 defense. And they're going to, I don't know how true they're going to be to it, but for the most part, like I remember last year, they had a lot of 3-down linebackers on the field a lot of times. So they might be able to handle that. But again, like if they're not ready to stop the run that game, they're in trouble. I mean, like they're in more trouble that game than I would say the Colts game because you still dealing rookie quarterback who doesn't have that many weapons. Desmond has a lot of weapons.
He did.
A lot. You know what I'm saying? Bijan, who's going to be a star. Obviously, Patterson, again, fit for our running back. Hey, I'll let you tell me his name again.
Tyler Algier.
You got Drake London. I was big on Drake London coming out of
Forgot
USC.
about Drake London.
Yeah, like he has a lot of talent out there. So, yeah.
He's fast.
Yeah. Hey, that's a game. I'm glad you mentioned. That's a game where I'm like, hey, they better be on their P's and Q's, literally.
I just want them to bring back the red helmets that they used to have back in the 80s. I feel like that's the complete look. Because I'll probably adopt the Falcons as a second team or something like that. All right. We got one last game. It's against the New Orleans Saints at NRG Stadium. And it's weird just to conceptualize, but they are now quarterbacked by Derek Carr, who for whatever reason has a Southern accent. Maybe it's from his time in Sugar Land. Maybe outside the sticks of California is something else. So here we go. To wrap it all up very quickly, the New Orleans Saints. Hey, what's going to happen in that game?
That is a good question. Because, the Saints could be good, but it could also be bad. You know?
Do you like Derek Carr?
I think he's a good quarterback. I think
he's okay.
No, I think he's a good quarterback.
Last year frustrated me because I felt like they set the table for him very well, and that if it was ever going to happen, it was last year in Vegas. Yeah. And I don't know if it's Josh McDaniels, and Josh McDaniels does not have the Midas touch. He might have the poopy touch. So maybe that's why things didn't work out so well last year.
Yeah.
But there's something that is missing with Carr. And I don't know what it is. I'm with you in that. Take a look at his numbers. They're always good.
Right.
Is he like the median quarterback in the NFL, the guy that you're like, I could probably do better, but I can also do a lot worse. So I'm satisfied with him.
Right.
Maybe he is.
He's kind of like in that Kirk Cousins bucket. You know what I'm saying? I think he's a good quarterback. You just he's kind of like on the lower end of the good quarterbacks in a weird way in terms of that tier. Because I have good quarterbacks. I have average quarterbacks, good quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, and elite quarterbacks. And then Patrick Mahomes, who's a Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying? So Derek Carr is kind of in that good quarterback range. But they have a really good roster. It's just can they do what's required to? Well, they come paper. They should win that division, and they should win this game. But with Carr, you just never know. Sometimes, he is really the professor of stinkers. He can randomly have a stinker out of nowhere, where you need him to be really good. That Steelers game was so odd, where he threw 3 interceptions.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, on Sunday Night Football. Kenny Pickett wasn't good that game, and he was able to lead a game in the drive mainly because Carr just wasn't doing much. You know what I'm saying? And then he has games where against Kansas City where he's making a bunch of plays on Monday Night Football, and then that last play of the game, on 4th and 2, he throws it deep to Hunter Renfro, and then Devontae Allen, they both run into each other and then falls incomplete. So it's weird, man. Carr should be a very good quarterback, a great quarterback, but he has all the intangibles, all the tools, all that, but he just doesn't know how to put it all together consistently, I guess. He is who he is at this point. He's been in the league since, again, the Obama administration. So
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Has more MVP votes than Russell Wilson, and I'm sure that it was Russell Wilson. He was really good in that one season, and then of course he was. For those who don't remember, the Houston Texans, instead of playing Derek Carr in the first round of the playoffs in 2016, they went up against Connor Cook.
Yep.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
That was.
You gotta win. They won though. Hey, it's all about winning playoff games. If you win, it don't matter who you play. Playoff games are hard to come by.
Just ask Bill O'Brien. Doesn't matter, DJ. AFC South champions. We'll see.
Hey.
We'll see. I'll say this about the Saints really quickly before we hit the road. Conceptually, they could be good because you look at the running back. You got Alvin Kamara. You got Jamal Williams there now, and he scored a ton of touchdowns last season. You have Chris Olave, who was a damn good wide receiver. Maybe they gave up too much to trade up and get him. And obviously, the Eagles took advantage of that. They got to draft Jalen Carter this year's draft because of that extra pick that they got. But they also have across from him Michael Thomas. If Michael Thomas can ever be Michael Thomas again, which is a big if, that is quite the guy to get back, especially after the way things have gone the last couple of years. So maybe that could work with Derek Carr.
I agree. I mean, and the defense is good. The defense is always good. So on paper, they should win. I mean, they should win that division with ease, but you just never know. Sometimes you just never know.
He is DJ BNMA. You can check out his work at ESPN.com covering the Houston Texans. Looking forward to that interesting piece about a young, promising Houston Texan around the corner. Yeah.
That I do.
And I am just going to twiddle my thumbs and be lazy. Because it's the summer, and there's nothing to talk about. So I'm really talking a lot. You can listen to me being an idiot on the radio from 10 to noon every single day, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. So long, farewell. We'll be back at it next week.